Hey, thanks for joining Sales with Suli, a mom of 3 who spent the last 12 summers knocking doors. Welcome to my podcast where I talk about all things women, the ups and downs of my journey, and what it takes to find success on and off the doors. On today's episode, I have Haven. Haven, what's your last name?
Houston.
Haven Houston.
Got a nice
Going
ring
to Texas,
it, right?
Houston. Definitely a nice. So Haven is actually the rookie who had beat my. Are we still on the intro? Okay. So Haven is the rookie who actually beat my very first summer record that I talked about on my previous on one of my previous episodes. So I kind of want to have her introduce herself and kind of talk to us about her first summer and kind of how that went, how she got into sales, and what drove her to be awesome on that first summer.
Well, hello. So I guess where it all started was 2 years ago, and I was 18. I was living in Orem. I was working 3 part-time jobs, taking 22 credit hours at school. I had a boyfriend. I was hanging out with my friends.
Do you still have that
family.
boyfriend?
No,
oh, okay.
Thank goodness, right? And making time for family, and I was probably sleeping 2 hours a night, and so I wasn't really living, but I was definitely living paycheck to paycheck, and it just wasn't a life that I was happy with.
At 18.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just super busy. I've been on my own financially since I was 16, so it was just it's just been a grind since then. But how I got started with sales was I had bought a brand new phone, and I went to St. George, and I went to a concert. And while I was at that concert, somebody snuck into my fanny pack, and they stole my phone. I had it for 2 days, and I was so distraught, especially because I didn't have money to go buy a new phone.
Yeah, you're already working multiple
jobs. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, oh, of course this would happen to me. Like, I'm so glad. And anyway, I went to Verizon, and the guy there, we kind of hit it off a little more personal than just selling me an iPhone.
Yeah.
And he gives me the stereotypical pitch, like, do you want to make $40,000 in 4 months? And I'm like, dude, does this require clothes? Because there's
this another pyramid.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, you're such a liar. Anyway, I didn't have anything to lose, so I was super curious. I think that day, like 2 hours after I went and met with the company that I worked for, and I asked them to show me some numbers. The numbers seemed good, and I was like, all right, let's do it.
At 18.
At 18, after having a 20-minute long meeting with them, I was like, let me sign my life away. And yeah, I mean, that was really it. That was how I got started with it.
Yeah, well, tell us about your first summer. Like, where was it that you knocked? Like, how many people were on your team? Like, I want to know what drove you to like success. Like, what were some of your like ups and downs of like the first summer?
So I got signed up when it was the end of February, I believe. So I had about 2 months or so to start training. So I just kind of dove right in. I had to learn
And you were still living in Utah?
Yeah.
Like, at the time.
Yeah. So I had to learn the ins and outs of everything because I didn't even understand how homes were built. So I mean, how bugs could be entering into homes or anything along those lines. And I was just having to figure out everything, like paraverbals, nonverbals, how to roll objections, how to close, just everything. I had to start from scratch.
I have to keep saying at 18 years old.
Right. Yeah, so I had to start from scratch, and so I really just started putting in some work. I only had about 2 months or so to train, and I was supposed to be going out to Baltimore my first summer. And I had that idea for 3 months, and I believe 3 days before I went out for the summer, my boss had told me that I was actually not going to be going to Baltimore anymore, and that he was switching me, putting me on a completely different team, which I had never met before.
And you didn't know anybody. But did you know people from your last?
Yes, I knew all of them because that's who I'd been planning on going out with for the last 3 months. Yeah, and so he put me on a completely random team that was going to be going out to Cincinnati, Ohio. And I mean, it was 3 days before. I had already dedicated the last couple of months to this. So, I mean, I couldn't really do anything else. I had to go out there.
So you sold with this team in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, so I was supposed to be going out to Baltimore. And then 3 days before I went out for the summer, they're like, psych, you're going to Cincinnati. And I'm like, alrighty, here we go. So I made the trip out there. I hadn't met anybody on the team yet. But I went out there, and it ended up being a really big blessing for me being on that team because we ended up being the number one team in the company that year.
That's okay.
And yeah, so I had went out there, and my first day knocking, I sold my very first door. So that was a really gratifying feeling for me, because I'm like, all right, maybe I can actually do this. Before that, I had never sold a thing in my life. I'm like, my last jobs were Subway, Megaplex, movie theater. Like, I'm a valet for popcorn. That's what I'm saying, right? I'm like a valet for a golf course. Like, I didn't have anything with sales before. So I had sold my first store, and then I ended up selling and servicing 7 on my first day. And so I was like,
on your first day, Haven?
I know, right? That's what I'm saying.
18.
Yeah, so
I thought me doing 11 my second day was cool.
Hey, but that is super cool.
Not as cool as on your first day.
Yeah, but so I was like, all right, maybe I have like a knack for this. This is really cool. And that was honestly what inspired me to just keep grinding with it, because I mean, my hard work is paying off. I really did devote a lot of hours to training and stuff before the summer, so that was super beneficial for my success. Yeah,
but what was like your routine during like the summer, and did you have other girls on the team? Like, how big was your team? Like,
yeah, so my routine in the summer, we were pretty strict on it because we wanted to be the number one team in the company. So we always had our daily correlation meetings at 9, and we would always knock until 9:30, 10 at night sometimes, and we would take like 30 minutes to an hour-long lunch, but that would be it. So it was just a grind, which was super nice. You were like
bought in, like you were excited.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I was so excited.
Yeah.
It was very exciting for me, and it was a whole new experience. I was saying that I was really good at it. I was excited to make some money, and especially money that I had never made before or seen. And I had went out, and there was 3 other girls on my team, and so that was super nice. So cool. I did have a good support system out there. I'm still friends with them to this day, so it was really cool to be able to relate on some things, because if I didn't have any girls out there, it'd be hard to relate to any of the men on the team, because they just don't really understand.
Like, do as well as you, or
no? Not really, but they did very well still. Cool. Yeah, I believe 3 of us got the 250 trip, and then one of them almost hit 200, I believe.
So awesome.
No, I mean, we were all powerhouses, so it was really nice to have.
And so when Haven talks about 250, so when you go and do door to door, if you hit like 250 accounts, you get to go on this big free trip, and then you get to become a manager the next year. So everyone's goal their first summer is, of course, to hit 250. So every time Haven talks about 250, that's what she's referencing to, for people who aren't too sure.
Yeah, you want to win those free trips for sure.
Yes. Okay, so you had 3 girls.
Yeah.
And 2 of you had won the 250 trip.
No, 3 of us had won it.
3 of you guys. And then you as well. And they were just like all bought in. So do you feel like that you had any struggles as like a female on this team during the industry, like during that first year? Or you just felt like you were just...
No, I definitely felt like I had some struggles as a woman. For me, I think all the struggles were really different between each girl. For me, my personal struggles was the simple fact that I had started when I was 18, because on the doors, it didn't happen all the time, but there were a few instances where I was called a little girl, and so it's... Like
by customers?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. By people on the doors, and so it's kind of hard for someone to want to give you their credit card information when they view you as a little girl, you know? So that was something that, because they could just tell that I was young, so that was an adversity that I feel like I had to kind of overcome. I had to dress different, I had to act like a boss woman, even more than I already was acting, just to really build some credibility for myself, verbally and non-verbally. So that was a struggle that I definitely feel like I face. Also, being a woman on the doors, me and some of the other girls, we also dealt with just some kind of creepy men as well. Didn't happen often, and especially considering how many people we talk to on a day-to-day basis, the statistics of it happening, it's just really unlikely. But there were about 2 instances I had my first summer where I was a little worried with.
And was that with like customers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just some random people on the doors, but I kept myself in a really safe environment. I made sure that I like controlled the situation so that I was still protected and safe. But nonetheless, I mean, men they can still make you feel super creeped out and weird on the doors. And so that was, I feel like as a woman, that was a trial that like I needed to overcome, and something that I dealt with. Not all the time though. I feel like another really big thing that I dealt with as a woman on the doors, a struggle, is that men like to discredit you as a woman.
Do you mean teammates or
teammates and people who, if I would post my stats, how I was doing, men would come in and comment, and they're like, "Oh, of course, because you're a pretty face."
Yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, that's so funny." So I go knock on a door, and because I'm pretty, they're gonna just immediately hand me their credit card. That makes so much sense.
Yeah,
and so kind of dealing with that and having to convince people that just because you have a pretty face, it might be helpful in some senses. Maybe people are a little bit nicer when they immediately open the door and they're not just immediately slamming, although that happened to me all the time still. But having to convince others that I also have to learn how to roll objections just like you do. I have to learn how to close people just like you do. I have to learn all my nonverbal, my paraverbal communication just like you do. And so having to hear from men all the time how it's just because I'm a woman that's why I'm doing well. It was frustrating in a sense because it's like it just wasn't supportive, you know. And I don't like. So I just convinced people just by selling more than them. that was really all it was.
You're like, and I'm gonna keep
and after a while, it was a lot of verbal that I was trying to convince at the beginning. But then after doing it a couple of times, I was so tired of having to convince someone. I'm like, you know what? The proof's in the pudding, as I've told you before, and they're just gonna have to see it in action. So then I just started selling more, and I was dominating. And I was dominating all the men on my team personally. That's awesome. All the men that I had talked with before coming out for the summer who didn't expect me to do any more than 100 accounts or anything like that, and would verbally explain that to me and express that they had those beliefs in me. And I was able to show them up and maybe double what they had done. And so that was super nice.
Crazy. That's always the biggest, like one of the struggles that I feel like in this industry are people or just like men or whoever else is like, oh, the only reason they're successful is because of this YZ. It's like we can't be just as successful as like
because we're good at selling.
Yes.
I'm like, that's so crazy.
And that's like the biggest thing with me for like this industry. It's not that I want to like, I don't want to downplay men, and I don't want to downplay like how awesome we truly have awesome like bosses and leaders and coworkers out there who are men, but being able to start from the bottom or starting all over to like get rid of that stigma that a pretty face is going to get us far, or just the fact that we're a woman, like, no, we are just as equal. Like we are working just as hard as
doing
you,
the exact
just as hard
same
as
thing
you,
as you're doing,
and probably not getting paid as much as you.
No, but just something we'll definitely get into.
Yes, no, exactly. So, well, tell me like what you felt like some of your strengths were, like whether it came from the team or you, or like what value you felt like you added.
A lot of the strengths did come from the team. Definitely, I don't think I would have been I know that I wouldn't have been as successful as I was my first year if I wasn't on the team that I was on.
Yeah,
I had a really good support system. They all were super encouraging. They also have the best training in the company, I feel. And so I was really able to learn from the best, and that helped my career flourish with it. And so that was definitely a strength for me. It was nice to have other women on the team as well, because it just helped keep me going, and they understood where I was coming from, and they always had my back no matter when I reached out to them. So that was nice. I didn't have to tackle it alone. Another strength, I guess, is just the tenacity. I mean, I just kept going. It was hard for sure, but I was really self-disciplined, and I had created a vision board before going out. And I did all the photos in black and white so that whenever I had accomplished something or purchased one of these things that I wanted, I would put it in color on top of it.
Was your Tesla on there?
Unfortunately, no, but a car was on there. I didn't know I was going to be doing the Tesla yet. But in the middle of it, I had put in a check on there, and I had written it for $80,000. And I was determined, even though they were telling me that I was probably only capable of making $30,000 or so, but I was determined. And I think that was one of my strengths, making that vision board before, because even though you have all these doubts and all these negative thoughts in your head throughout the summer, and maybe it's just me, but I know everybody struggles with it. It's just a tough job.
Yeah.
I would be able to just go back and look at that vision board, and it's like, that's a constant daily reminder of like why I'm here. And that was a super big strength for me to always be able to hold on to that, because it's a physical.
And did you hit it?
Oddly enough, I made, I think, $115 over my
oh
goal.
my gosh, this is me giving her a high five that people probably can't see. But you, at 18 years freaking old,
that's what I'm saying,
goes and slays it. Slays Suli's rookie summer. I did 316. This girl comes and does 406.
Yeah.
Makes $115 over the $80,000
my
goal that she posted.
Yeah, and it was just so crazy that it was just right over what was on my vision board. Like, not even a significant amount. It was just right there. And so that's why I totally believe in vision boards, and I believe that that's a really big strength for people, because your mind can be a really detrimental thing if you let it get in the way.
Yeah.
And sales just has a tendency to do that to people. And so, yeah, that was just a really good daily reminder for me. So I really held on to that my first year.
That, like, you fascinate me so much. And but now I kind of want to get into your transition. Like, I know that the summer was great, but I kind of want to hear like how the end of the summer had went, like your trips, kind of like what you've seen as far as like pay, as you were like meeting and people wanting you to be a part of like every meeting and doing all these things, into like where you're deciding to go now and kind of why you've moved on. So like now I want to get into the nitty gritty of your transition.
So at the end of the summer, I had won 3 trips. I won my 250 trip to Fiji.
So cool.
I had won the race to Costa Rica was the first year. And then I'd also won a humanitarian trip to Ecuador. And so that was all super cool. I went and did that. I was living the life. And I guess, do you want me to share my experience from those trips?
Mm-hmm. I want to know, like, what got you into, like, your decision as of today, March 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we'll get into the pay after, I guess. So my first trip, I guess, I'm making the decision now, and it's a decision I probably should have made a year ago, but I'm grateful that I was still there for the last year. I had a lot more learning experiences. But my first year was the biggest blessing I'd ever have, but it was also kind of a curse for me. I went out on my first 250 trip, and I was very excited. It was my first time ever traveling out of the country, or basically traveling at all. I mean, I had just been staying in the States. And I went out on it, and long story short, a man that I had sold with on my first summer.
He was on your team?
Yeah, he was on my team my first summer. While we were out there, he had just tried being sexually abusive to me. And
like physically or just words?
No, physically. Like, he tried molesting me on my trip, and it was a really gruesome and horrifying experience for me. I didn't tell anybody about it during the trip because we still had 5 days left, and I didn't want to ruin anybody's trip. I didn't see it going well, so I kept that in.
And were these other girls who were on your team, did they come with you too on this trip?
Yeah, they came with me on this trip as well. And he also would be verbally and just kind of verbally naughty and gross with them, but he had never tried anything else in that sense, just to me. And so when we got back from the trip, I knew that I needed to tell my boss about it because, I mean, he needed to be gone. Like, no, I didn't want somebody else to deal with it. I also felt super unsafe being around him and having him still be in the same environment and working for the company. And so I mustered up the courage. Probably took me a week. I went to go tell my team leader what had happened, and I'm sobbing, explaining to him what went on. And his first response to me after I finished talking was, "What did you do to provoke it?" And I guess because I was breathing and I was a living human being. I mean, there was nothing that I had done to provoke anything like that. Nobody can do something to provoke someone like that. And further proceeded to say that women are a problem in this company. Men will be men, boys will be boys. I mean, at this point, I'm 19, so I'm super naive. You can't, and I just experienced something horrific. It's like I'm in a really uncomfortable
summer. You were with this team.
Yeah, I was like, wow, how is this such a big blessing? And then it could turn so evil and gross now. And so just trying to like convince him that, and then also feeling like with him, you can't state to a 19-year-old girl, well, do you want to be the reason that this man is not going to have financial stability anymore? Do you want to be the reason he's not going to be secure with money? Like, you can't put that on me. Yeah. And so that was something that was super hard for me. So that forced me to push it under the rug.
Do you know how much older he was than you?
He believed he's 20. He was 23.
Yeah, so he was still as young, but nonetheless, he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And that's like any of you women out there who are on a team or with a group of people where you feel like you are uncomfortable with talking to your leader or to your boss, like that is their fault.
Oh,
like,
definitely.
Yeah. And I am appalled that the first question that he has
it was
out
horrible.
of his mind is, what did you do to provoke? As opposed to showing empathy, as opposed to, holy cow, bringing that guy in,
and
going to
firing.
Period.
Not saying let's push it under the rug so that he can have financial security and we'll still have you because we need you because you just broke the female rookie record. So we need to use you like a show horse for all of our recruiting meetings and for all of these things. And
like, how many women like in the industry period feel threatened or feel nervous to go and talk to like their leader, go talk to the boss? And it's terrible.
They want to make this inclusive for women, but they don't make it inclusive for women. They don't do anything to support them. They don't set up a safe environment, but all they want to do is bring in more women. I felt so uncomfortable recruiting women because of my experience, because I knew that if something were to happen to them, they would not have been taken care of. I know that I'm stronger than most, and so I'm glad that if the experience was going to happen to anybody, that it was me, just because I know that I can handle it. But I didn't feel safe bringing anybody in because of how that whole experience went down. And then the simple fact that it's like, they just told me to suck it up and endure it, push it under the rug, and we're just going to keep going on.
Wow.
And I was too scared to leave just because I had made so much money. I didn't know I could make that money anywhere else, and I didn't want to give that up to go work a 9 to 5 again. There's no way. And when you're drinking the Kool-Aid, you don't think that there's anything else.
We drank a ton of Kool-Aid,
I was
girl.
sipping that Kool-Aid. My tummy's full. And so it was just exhausting. But and I guess where the frustration really comes from is that, like, the harassment didn't even end. They forced me to go on more trips with the same man, and the harassment continued on those trips. And I guess my final straw was on this my second year. I went to Dubai for my 250 trip.
Okay.
And on that trip, the same man was on it, and I hadn't seen him for a year at this point. And his first comment to me when he sees me was, "How much do you charge?" And so I just didn't say anything. I was like, there's no way that you are saying this to me. Like, I was appalled. And then so I just sat there for a second. He says, "Because I wouldn't even pay to F you." And then that was my final straw. I was like, I haven't seen you for a year. You should have been fired a year and a half ago, and you're still here making money, and you're still harassing me, and it's never ended. I don't deserve this.
And was your same boss on this trip?
Yep.
Floored.
And I was just done. And so that was my final straw. I knew that, like, no matter what I ended up doing, I was going to be leaving, no matter what it ended up taking. So that was probably that was a tough thing. I guess another big issue and why I also had made the decision to leave is because there was not a day that went by where I didn't hear from my regionals, my team leaders, other men in the company, how much women are a problem here. I wasn't hearing it in many other regions, but in my region specifically, they love to verbally express the fact that women are a problem. They're an issue. They don't like dealing with our hormones. And I'm like, how could you not like dealing with us? We're making you thousands of dollars.
Like, literally.
Thousands of dollars. I don't understand.
Like,
and you're not having to deal with anything. You have to deal with us maybe asking you a question that a man is also asking you. But
did you have a bunch of women in your region?
Yeah. And I mean, they still also had the same comments made to them as well. Not all of them. I think maybe because I was really up there in the business, and they just felt like they had the authority to tell me that I was such a problem, and literally just a problem for me being a woman. It's not anything else. It's just the fact that I had stood up for myself, and I had brought the situation that this man had done to me to attention, and because I had made them aware of this situation that they didn't want to ever deal with, because they've never had to deal with a sexual harassment case before, ever. Because
like
I'm the
this region or this company?
This company, what they told me.
Too many of us haven't showed up to HR.
Nope.
Probably the problem out of fear.
Well, no, also, I did show up, and what happened?
Tell me about
He pushed
that.
it under the rug. So, I mean, I asked for him to be fired. I asked to be reached out to HR. But, I mean, let's talk about HR anyway. HR isn't there for you. HR is there for the company, and they're there to protect their asses, and they're there to not protect you. They are there to protect the higher ups. That's all it is. So,
well, I kind of want to know your like exact experience for that. First of all, I'm like sorry, one, that you even had to go like through this, and two, and I'm sure that there's going to be some people who are listening who are probably going to be like, oh, well, she didn't have to go on that trip, or oh, why didn't she go and talk to this person sooner, or oh, why
of course, everybody's always going to say, the what ifs of what you could have done.
It's exactly like just what the excuses and the reasons, but it's like, who else has this person done to that didn't have the courage to come and talk to their boss? Like,
and why are we justifying men's behavior? I should have been able to go on all those trips because I earned them. I shouldn't have to miss out on something because a man doesn't know how to control himself.
Exactly.
That's not my responsibility. Maybe they need to educate men to teach them that we're not objects.
Yeah,
I'm allowed to.
We don't need to keep using this line of like men will be men or boys will be boys.
No, because it's not true. That's not the reality of the situation, or it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I kind of want to know, like, so after that happened, I want to know like the steps that you took in HR and how that went, and like what exactly they told you that made you like, hey, I'm done. Like, I'm moving on.
So the first year, everything got pushed under the rug, dealt with constant harassment. Second year after the Dubai trip, I was absolutely done. He needed to be fired. And I reached out to HR. They got all the information, really were just acting like they were there for me, that they were going to take care of me. Come to find out, they got all that information in order to protect my regional, my team leader, a different man in the company who's also a really important asset, and they just wanted to protect them because I let them know everything that they said. And I've had recordings, and I've had screenshots of things, and I'm
like
bringing all of this.
You brought it all to
HR.
HR.
I brought it all to HR, and that was my mistake because then they had all the ways in which they needed to protect these men in the company. So then I got screwed because...
You came with proof.
Yep, I came with proof. And so now they knew exactly how to defend the people who are above me. And so I didn't know that HR was there for the company. I thought that HR was there for me. And I guess I'm glad that I learned now moving forward, but they didn't do anything to protect me. So I told them my stipulations, like I needed to be released from my contract. And I was not going to be paying for my trip. So if they tried to sue me, that's done. I'm not paying. So that was like what I was saying. And I guess, and so now what's being talked about in the company, I'm having a lot of defamatory statements made about me that they wanted to they did terminate me. I find it funny that they're saying they terminated me because I don't know how you can terminate someone that you paid out. So, and as someone that asked to be released from their contract, you can't, that's not called termination, but it's the way for my story to be hidden under the rug because they don't want anybody to know that they forced me to hide a rape case for 2 years. And, all of the slandering that I have received from them. I have a voice, and they've never allowed me to use it, and they want me to continue not being able to use it.
Did, like, anyone ever, like, come and apologize?
No. No. They actually have tried justifying why what they've done was what they needed to do.
What about, like, the owner of the company?
No, I don't even know if he actually knows my face and what I look like, which is odd because I broke a record that was held in the company for years.
Wow.
And I think that I've maybe been acknowledged by him once.
I'm so
sorry, it's kind of like they used me like a show horse, but they actually did not care about me.
Yeah.
And nobody was in my corner there, but they tried really hard to create the image for everybody else that they were.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I'm seeing, and I'm going to talk about later when it's my turn, just like the ugliness that you see when we're not benefiting like them anymore. But like when this happened to you and they basically told you that you couldn't reach out, they were protecting these guys, like did you ever have like a desire to like go after them, like any, or were you just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing?
I did, but I didn't know what I was going to, I didn't know what to do. I've never dealt with legalities before. I didn't know that I was ever going to have to. I didn't know I was ever going to experience something like this. So I didn't know the steps to take after. And I guess I just don't really have the desire to.
Yeah.
If these men can live with themselves after what they've done, then that's totally fine. That's totally on them. I don't feel like it's worth my time to go and try to pursue them for something. I definitely could have. I mean, a sexual harassment case is a really big deal for a company, especially when it's been hidden for 2 years. But I just don't have the desire to. I feel like I can prove my success, and I can just by going out and doing more. I don't need to sue somebody and take them to court and do all these things that I actually just don't really care to do. I just really hope that they have learned and that they just won't do this to anybody else, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that like other women just in the industry will like be able to like speak up as well. Like we need to hold our leaders accountable. And it's like I'm in the same boat as you, like hearing my name being slandered, like wherever the heck else. And it's just like they want us to be a part of that, and it's just like why? Like
there's
why
no
give
point.
it?
Yeah,
like it's not going to serve us. It's not our energy. But for me, I am just so sorry. Like thinking about you and just any other woman in this industry who have just felt like they had to be put in a closet, or like we were showcased if we did well or talked about. And I mean, do you feel like your gender pay during that time doing so great was worth what you should have been getting?
No, because let's be honest, when I started, they actually offered me there was the benefit. Because of how I came into my first meeting, let me show you guys a picture. Is when I came in with some bright pink hair, a septum piercing, my jeans were ripped down to my feet, and I walked in. Thank you, but does this look like they're going to sell door to door? No. So they offered me a super high pay scale because they didn't think that I was going to sell anything because of how I looked. Really? Yeah, and the way that I know that I'm not just talking out my butt right now, they told me after my first year, the VP of sales, my team leader, my regional, and then the guy who broke the all-time record for the company all stated that they didn't believe I would have sold more than 125. So they offered me this huge pay scale by hitting when I hit 400 because they didn't think it was achievable. Little did they know.
Oh my gosh, that was just a feel, right? That you needed.
Yeah, so they lost a lot of money on me that they didn't expect to. So then come around my second year, they didn't want to offer me more because they had already offered me so much my first year.
So they offered you the same pay scale you did the year before?
Yes, where I would have made literally, I think 3% more. So I would have made a couple extra thousand even after I broke a freaking record. So it was not a good time. And then considering the fact that after I broke that record, how many of these men asked me to come in for recruiting meetings, whether that be with males or females, and I did it because I needed to elevate the tribe. But anytime they do any of those things, the only thing that gets elevated is their pockets because they get paid for all of these meetings. And it's funny that anytime I needed training from somebody, they would be getting paid. But anytime I needed to train somebody, I just had to do it because I needed to, just out of the kindness of my heart.
Well, how'd you know that they were getting paid for like these trainings?
They would say it. So I guess that was the frustrating thing. Or brag about it. Or I'm like, I'm more of a listener than a talker sometimes. So I'll also just hear in passing conversations how they're making money, where they're making money. And I was not. And it wasn't anything that they would even let me negotiate because it was something that I needed to work towards. It was really like how they kept my pay down was because they wanted me to work towards it. And I'm like, what more do you guys want from me? You want me to keep breaking more records every single year? I mean, I guess I'll do that on my own, but like I shouldn't have to be like scratching tooth and nail for these pay increases that I'm so deserving of, you know?
That was like the biggest like eye opener for me. Like as we get into kind of my transition and my story. And again, I am so like sorry, like just like looking at you and just the person that you've become in those like 2 years, like I wish we would have like connected sooner.
I know, definitely. But it's okay. Hey, better late than never. We're fine.
Definitely better late than never. But the interesting dynamic of that is just being able to just see like how crucial in this industry, like we as women need to come together and be able to speak up. Like if we're deserving of something, like we need to demand it. Like the proof is in the pudding. Mm-hmm. Like you literally broke a record. You wanted to know what you needed to do, and still, as opposed to giving it to you, they use you kind of like as a prop.
Yeah, and I feel like in my region specifically, all the men follow the 48 laws of power. And I don't know if anybody's ever...
Book?
It's a book. It's by Robert Greene.
I read it?
No.
Okay.
Because it's all about ways in which to be so conniving and evil and how you need to stomp on people's necks and snap them in half to get to the top. I personally believe that I can achieve all the success in the world by creating a homogenous community with the people that I am working with and by building them up and not tearing them down. And so it was super hard because I was just working with sharks. And I can't say that everybody that I was working with was sharks. I'm not going to discredit everybody. There is definitely some great times that I've had with this company. And there's definitely some great people and great experiences. But I'm going to say for the majority, it it was just sharks. It's hard. I'm not that type of person. So for me to be surrounded in an environment like that, it's really devastating for me. It's kind of like when people wonder why someone stays in an abusive relationship and they're like, oh, well, like, why on earth would they be staying in that? But it's the same thing when people stay in a job that they hate. It's like, why are you staying in a job that you hate? Nobody talks about that, though.
If I can snap.
Right? No, nobody talks about it, but I was staying because it's all that I thought that there was.
Yeah.
It's all that I thought that I could get. I had no idea. I had no idea. And now that I've stepped out of it, because I've realized that once you can sell very well, you literally have a job anywhere and you have a job for life. So once I finally understood that concept and I stepped out of my environment that I was in, oh my word, did the opportunities start flooding in. I didn't realize that my name was known outside of the company I had been working for. And when I had left, I was receiving 15, 20 different offers from so many different companies. And it was actually overwhelming. I had so many options, and I thought that was the only option I had ever. And so now it's just been overwhelming having to like sift through and decide.
And be like, no, I don't want you.
No, but everybody knows my name, and I had no idea about it. And so I'm super grateful that I was able to accomplish what I did at the company I worked for, because it allowed me to have a lot more options, and it allowed me to, achieve more success outside of that. But it was a really good stepping stone nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is like, I don't want to be the one who's like downplaying like anyone's success or anyone's company or whatnot, but I feel like you're definitely in a better headspace, and I feel like you found and seen like your worth having people come after you. So like, tell us where you are like right now, like emotionally, and like where you feel like what you are wanting to accomplish, or kind of like the example, or what is it that your goals for like this year, like what does Haven want now that she knows that she's capable of anything?
I'm very excited for the future. I want to be a confident, successful, inspiring woman, and not only for myself, but I want others to feel that way as well too. And I want to let individuals know that they are capable of things that they didn't even know they were capable of. I never knew that I was going to be a saleswoman. I never even knew about sales. I grew up in Nevada. That's not a thing in Nevada, especially my small town, Mesquite. You don't know about anything like that. And I want to empower people. I want them to know that there are other options, even if it's not sales, but your voice matters, and there's no way and there's no reason that anybody should be discredited. And so I really just want to I really just want to pursue success. I mean, that's really in all regards, not just monetary, but my personal, my spiritual, my mental goals. I just want to hit them all. So I'm just trying to grow and be the best version of myself, and I want others to do the same, and just let them know that they're not alone and that we can all do it together. And if we do it together, I feel like we're going to have a bigger impact, because it's the compound effect. Or the ripple effect too, I guess. You don't realize the impact that you have and what it can make, what it can do for somebody. And then like I said, it's the ripple effect. You just never know. And so I'm really just wanting to go out there, see what I can do, see really what I'm capable of and what I can achieve, and then also do that for everybody else too.
Thank you so much for like being super vulnerable, Haven, and just being able to like share your story. Like, I kid you not, just like being able to just relate to you on like every aspect of like wanting to prove yourself, but having to continually do it on a regular basis, you know, just because we feel like we are women. Thanks for taking the time to tune in. If I've added any kind of value to your thoughts on knocking doors, please share this podcast with another female rep. Until next time, know that you are capable, you are valued, and most importantly, you are enough.